Howdy everyone! Today we are back with another video for the progression series. This time we're hitting us some giants. Let's go! Just a quick heads up for this video series, I'm only going to be focusing on teams that I think everyone should be building as they are the most efficient or the most time saving. If you have been following the series so far, you're just starting to get ready to build your first GB12 team. Hopefully you have your lapis up and ready to go and you're moving on to the next step. There are two ways to approach your first Giants B12 team. The first is a continuous damage or dot team, and the second being a control team using Fran and Lauren. In my opinion, I feel like the dot team is slightly better to go for early on. It's much faster, the rune quality needed is super low, and you don't need to max out some of the units to get the team up and running. It's also much easier to transition into a speed team later on. There are many ways to build a functional dot team early on. However, the core of the team is usually 2A Sath and double Melias. Melia is a fusible 4-star and doesn't need any skill ups to work, so everyone can build it, okay? I get a lot of people asking me what team to use to 2A their Saths. If you're just starting the game, I recommend using Fran, Vigor or Royd, and an Tricaru. Fran is an amazing support, and you'll be able to use her in a lot of content throughout the game. Royd is part of the beginner Alunia B5 team and is a decent unit overall, and Tricaru is part of the best late game dungeon teams. This is the most efficient team I could think of for early on. The only downside is you'll probably have to farm stage 3 to 2A your Sath, which honestly, it isn't a big deal as most players can only farm stage 3 or 4 at the beginning of the game. I recommend doing this in your first week of gameplay. Getting your dot team up and running ASAP will just skyrocket your account's progression. The beginner team that I recommend building is Veramos, Sath, Melia, Melia +1. At the beginning of the game, there is a fusion event. I recommend choosing the units to fuse a Vero as he fits the dot team nicely. Veramos is actually a kind of underrated unit. You can use him in a decent amount of later game content. He works well in the TOA stages that have bombers. You can put him on a swift set to cleanse your team in the TOA Hell stage that has a conditional silence, and he can be used as a counter pick in RTA Siege or Guild War. In general, he's just a good unit that most people should be able to use here or there. Most people are going to build tar2 as their +1. She's going to speed up the dungeon time quite a bit and honestly is quite easy to rune. The biggest downside to tar2 is that she isn't really that versatile or necessary for any content. However, I would still probably recommend her over other options. You're going to be spending a lot of your time farming giants anyway, so it becomes a worthwhile investment in the long run. In terms of runes for the team, you can honestly put them on anything. One thing to remember is that stats are just way more important than sets, so go for stats first. As long as the units are decently tanky, it should honestly be fine. For the Melias, I would aim for 54 accuracy and then go for tanky stats and speed. Vero works well on a tanky Swift or Vio set. Keep in mind you can also use the free sets. Getting some accuracy is nice, but not really necessary. For Sath, you should prioritize being tanky first. Aim for 30k HP and 1k defense, if you can. Then, try to go for speed and then accuracy after. tar2 works well on a slower tanky set. Vio is preferred, but not necessary. The turn order should look something like this. Vero, Sath, Melia, Melia, tar2. The team will be much faster and safer if all your units have more than 60 speed while keeping this same turn order. If you have your Sath and double Melias up and running, you could use Fran, Lapis or Vertihile as replacements until you finish your tar2 second awakening. If you really don't want to use Veramos in your teams, you could also use the other one from the Fran, Lapis or Vertihile combo. Just a quick tip too, the dot team with Fran is a decent team to clear Steel Fortress 10 for artifacts as well. If you want to build a control team with Fran and Lauren, you can. You could run a team like Vertihile, Lapis, Fran, Lauren, and Crow or Naomi. These units are all very useful. This team, however, will run a bit slower than the dot team, but it is a nice alternative. I still do recommend the Sath team though, as Sath is also very useful for clearing TOA hard or TOA hell stages, and the control CC teams just take way too long. After building your dot team, there honestly is no reason to change the team until you want to transition to a speed team. So, get your farming fingers on and get to it. At this point in time, there are a couple speed teams out there, but I honestly only recommend changing from the Vero dot team to the Lushen dot team for most beginner players. You already have all the monsters built and ready to go, so the transition isn't too hard. The only downside to the Lushen dot team is you will need to get a decent Lushen and some fight sets. I decided when I first started doing this series, if someone has already put extensive effort into testing a team and showing the results, I'm not going to bother copying the information and just putting it in my own words. If you are looking for some more in-depth analysis of GB12 speed teams, I will post some links down in the description. I'm also going to post a link to another beginner series here on YouTube. I'm really enjoying it so far, and it's good if you're needing some more information about starting a beginner account. Keep in mind, a lot of the videos out there can still be useful, but in general, it is probably better to use the most recent content in case anything has changed. A quick tip I want to put out for in preparation to the next video is do your labyrinth every day. When you have a choice for grinds and enchants, I recommend choosing any set that drops some giants, as the grinds and enchants will help a lot from making your next few teams a little safer. At this point, you should have all your rune sets from the beginner's event. Just put them on any of the units that you've leveled up, and you should be able to clear most normal stages of the labyrinth. That's all for this one. Catch you later. Peace!